is Buddhism? I mean, it seems like a pretty straightforward question, right? But the truth is, the answer is way more complex than you might think. It's this incredibly profound teaching that, well, it often gets misunderstood or shoved into these neat little boxes that just don't quite fit. You know, when you ask people, they usually try to define it as one of three things. Is it a religion, a philosophy, or maybe a way of life? And look, those are all good starting points, but as we're going to explore in this explainer, none of those labels on their own really capture the whole picture. So let's dive into that seemingly simple question and see just how deep the answer actually goes. Okay, we're going to take a look at each of those common labels, religion, philosophy, and lifestyle, and really break down why they don't quite get the job done. All right, let's start with the big one, religion. I mean, it makes sense, right? With all the temples, the rituals, the traditions, it's really easy to see why this is the most common way people think about it. And yeah, on the surface, it for sure looks like a religion. You see people visiting temples, you see statues of the Buddha, people are making offerings like flowers, but, and this is a huge but, it doesn't really fit the standard definition. See, there's no belief in a creator God. The focus isn't on some supernatural being. Its focus is, well, it's somewhere else entirely. Okay, so if it's not strictly a religion, what about philosophy? Does that label work better? I mean, it definitely dives into some of life's biggest, deepest questions. And no doubt about it, the teachings are incredibly philosophical. We're talking profound topics like the nature of existence, impermanence, all that good stuff. But here's the crucial difference. Buddhism isn't just about studying concepts. It's not some academic subject you just read about in a book. The goal isn't just intellectual understanding. It's about practice and realization. It's about actually doing it. And that whole emphasis on practice, well, that leads us right to our third label, a way of life. And this one feels pretty close, right? It seems to fit because it's all about what you do day to day. And look, for anyone who practices it, Buddhism absolutely becomes a way of life. It guides your actions, practicing virtues, practicing meditation. But think about it this way. That label describes the actions you take. It describes the how. What it doesn't fully explain is the why. What's the core purpose behind all those actions? So, if religion, philosophy, and way of life are all incomplete, what's left? What's the real core of it all? Well, to find that answer, we've got to go straight to the heart of what the Buddha actually taught. And the key, the answer to our whole question, is right there in the Buddha's very first and most essential teaching, the one he gave right after his enlightenment. This one idea is the bedrock for everything else. And that teaching is known as the Four Noble Truths. This is the core framework of all of Buddhism. Now, the best way to think about this framework is like a doctor's diagnosis. Seriously. Step one, the doctor identifies the symptom. Life involves something called dukkha, which is this baseline of unsatisfactoriness. Step two, the diagnosis is figuring out the cause. This unsatisfactoriness comes from our constant craving and desire. Step three, the prognosis, is the good news. There's a cure. We can actually end this unsatisfactoriness by letting go of that craving. And finally, step four is the prescription. The path to letting go is a practical guide called the Noble Eightfold Path. Let's just take a second on that keyword dukkha. You often hear it translated as suffering, but honestly, a much better word is unsatisfactoriness. You know that feeling? It's that constant low-level background hum of stress or unease, that feeling that things just aren't quite right. That's dukkha. And it comes from our attachment to how we think things should be. So you see, the Four Noble Truths aren't just a set of beliefs you're supposed to just accept. They're not a dogma. They're a path to realization. They're a guide for you to investigate for yourself. And this really is the most important part. It's not just something you study. It's something you do. It requires direct, personal practice. There's a quote that just sums this up perfectly. You have to realize by yourself, through yourself, what the reality is. It's not about what someone else tells you. It's all about your own direct experience. So let's circle all the way back to our original question. What is Buddhism? Well, maybe the best answer isn't a single word. Maybe the best answer is that it's a path. It's a practical method built on the Four Noble Truths that's designed to help you understand and end that feeling of unsatisfactoriness by learning to see reality clearly, just as it is.
And that leaves us with one final thought, a question for you, really. If the whole goal is to see reality a little more clearly, to dial down that unsatisfactoriness in our own lives, what do you think the very first practical step on that path would be?